Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wellness Process podcast. I feel like it's been a while since I've sat down and recorded a solo. And as the year is winding down, it's November. I am just kind of reflecting on all that's happened this year and also realizing that for some of these big life transitions that I've had, I haven't necessarily gone into full detail. And I feel like there are a lot of details that I would love to share. I write about a lot of this stuff in my Substack now, and writing has become this very enjoyable outlet for me. I'm not sure if it's because of all the journal speak that I've been doing. 20 minutes a day is like 3 full pages, and I've sort of become, you know, I've learned to enjoy writing a bit more, and so it's been this nice outlet. So, also check out my Substack if you are interested in just seeing more details, photos, behind the scenes, and just kind of like enjoying the written word. I've been consuming a handful of people's Substacks. I really enjoy. Recently discovered Lacey Phillips on Substack, loving that for manifestation stuff. My good friend Melanie Masserin, who's the founder of Gia, she has a really cool Substack, very loyal following, amazing fashion sense, and just like one of those people who has the coolest finds anywhere she goes, like that kind of person. I also love Courtney Grow, amazing fashion. She is running such an empire. I remember discovering her when she had like 20,000 followers and being like, this girl is so special. So it's cool to see people thriving on Substack. And also, I just want to say, if you're someone who wants to start creating and has something that you want to share, whether it's health and wellness or fashion or literally anything, Substack is such a user friendly, growth friendly platform, in my opinion. I feel like they really promote new creators. Like, I just started mine, I don't know, maybe like 4 months ago, and I have about 15,000 followers. And they've come so organically, and I feel like it's a whole different audience. So, anyway, all that to say, if you've been feeling like you wanna create, I feel like Substack is a really fun place to do that, and, it's sort of why I haven't done a solo episode about these big life transitions, about my wedding, about, um, my transition from sweats, which actually happened, like, 3 months ago, um, because I feel like I've already shared those details, and I forget that, most people are not, consuming across all of my platforms. So I digress. Today's episode is gonna be about these big shifts that have happened for me in 2025. I was reflecting with Clayton the other night, and he was like, "2025 has been the most transformational year. There's been so much that's happened in my personal life, in my business, et cetera." And I was like, "Same." There's something about, I don't know, the momentum of this year. Maybe it was meeting my person, kind of creating this momentum. Maybe it was the other way around. I'm not really sure. But I did want to share more details about those things because I think you guys are probably a little curious. And also, it's just a fun exercise of reflection. So, the first thing I will say is that 2025 was really the year that I got my chronic pain under control. I talk about this frequently, but it's something that I'm really, really proud of because A, I never thought it would come in the format that it did. And B, it's something that I was deeply concerned that I would, be on my deathbed one day and still have chronic pelvic pain. Like, if I'm honest, I was worried about being 100 years old, feeling like I had a UTI still, and just like having that be my day-to-day life. There was a point where I was like, this is just something that I have to learn to live with. And maybe like mask it with painkillers, or I don't know. I don't know, but I certainly never thought that journaling was going to be the thing that fixed my chronic pain. And I know I talk about it a lot, but it's because it really works. And I really feel called to share because I know that so much of this community, of my audience, of these listeners, um, have chronic conditions. And maybe you're not there yet where you're not quite open to the idea that there could be an emotional root. It certainly took me a very long time. I heard nervous system regulation. ad nauseum on social media. And I remember with my friend sending this stuff back and forth and being like, do we think this really works? This sounds so daunting. It sounds so overwhelming. I feel like I have the one specific case that isn't going to be fixed by this. I know how all of that feels. And I'm here to say that I'm not special. I am no longer sitting, it's funny because when you have chronic pain, you really identify certain spaces with being in pain. I don't know what that is. Airplanes were a big one. If I was ever on like a long car ride, it's almost like I would manifest the pain because I was so used to associating it with those situations. And sitting in the podcast studio was very much one of them, especially because when I first started podcasting, throwback to my, podcast that I started before this one that most people don't know about. It was all about chronic pelvic pain and, like, just talking about pain and talking about UTIs, and it was, like, honestly so triggering and so doing the exact opposite of what I really needed to be doing, which I just didn't know at the time, and I'll never fault myself for that. I wasn't ready. And you really can't push someone when they're ready, but this room used to give me like chronic bladder pain agita, so I'm just really happy to be sitting here and I won't stop talking about it because it's so important and I'm so proud of it and anyway, I say all of that and I of course need to mention Nicole Sachs because she is the creator of Journal Speak and the reason that I'm sitting here pain-free today. So, if that's of interest, I have lots of podcast episodes with Nicole. But just in looking at 2025, that is something that I could not go without mentioning because it was one of my most pivotal shifts and something that I will carry into every year thereafter. And also, I say this often, but I really feel like I've sort of unlocked this superpower with it. That is not to say that I am immune to pain, sadness, depression, anxiety, all of those things. I am a human and I feel all of it. But chronic pain and conditions are not something that I identify with or have. Um, I will get a little twinge here and there. I actually had a little bit of a pelvic pain flare the day before my wedding. And I think it's important to mention that excitement, anticipation, a little bit of anxiety, your body doesn't necessarily know when that's a positive thing because you're getting married the next day. It doesn't know the difference, right? And so I had my first pelvic pain flare in a very long time that day. And I was like, first of all, this is annoying and uncomfortable and I'm annoyed, but also welcome, bring it on. I know exactly what's going on here. It's so cool to be able to viscerally feel what's going on with my nervous system. And it passed. And the next day I woke up, absolutely no pain. So the duration of the flares are shorter. I no longer identify with them being chronic. I've just come a really long way. And oh, and on the superpower note, I feel like I have this new lens for chronic stuff. And that can be a little tricky because a lot of people have chronic stuff and I want to help them and I want them to do the work and I know that it will work for them. I just have to keep my mouth shut and share my experience. And, um, hopefully people will be inspired by that when they're ready, which could be 5 years from now. It could be never, it could be yesterday. And I just have to be okay with that because it's their journey, of course. Um, but I feel like when these little things pop up that I used to absolutely identify with and run with. And if you're someone who's had chronic stuff for a long time, I'm sure you can relate, whether it's the stomach or the skin or the head or the neck or the back. Um, it's really easy to get a twinge and attach yourself to it and be like, here we go again. And start going down the rabbit holes and you're Googling and you're on ChatGPT and you're booking an appointment and you're getting supplements and you're like gearing up for war because you have been through war. And one of the side effects of regulating your nervous system and especially doing Nicole's practice of journal speak is you no longer have to prepare for war because when those little things come up, yeah, you might be triggered, of course, again, human experience, but I stop myself at about 5% instead of going to 105% like I used to before. And so I really feel like there are so many things, I'm going to go through stressful things in my life. I'm going to grieve. There's going to be loss. There's going to be really high highs and low lows. And inevitably, as a highly sensitive, perfectionistic, overachieving person. I feel those things really intensely. I take them on. I blame myself. Like there's so many layers to what my body has been feeling for 33 years. And inevitably those things are going to pop up and I'm going to get little head pains and all the things. And by the way, always get checked. I have had head to toe everything checked, more so than I'm proud to say because of my health anxiety. Um, but I just feel like the fear, that level of fear is no longer going to be something that I experience. And that feels like a superpower. Has anybody had Happier Grocers homemade pistachio milk? I'm sipping a latte right now, which by the way, I brought my own matcha there because I don't know if you guys have had it, but it is unfortunately, it's like the gray green color. And if you're a matcha person, you know that it needs to be the vibrant green color. So I actually brought my own packets, mixed it up there like a savage, but their pistachio milk with a little bit of maple syrup is incredible. So I feel like I'm really flying this morning, and I booked this solo recording at 8 a.m. sharp, up nice and early in the studio, didn't work out, was like, this is what I want to be doing today. And honestly, could not have woken up in a better mood for this. I'm really excited. So, okay, moving into my transition from Sweats in the City, which I have not gone into full detail in on here. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit more and a little bit of behind the scenes and a little bit of what's going on for me and what it all felt like and how that went and all the questions that I've been getting in my Q&A boxes and in the DM and all of that. So, I think this happened in August, so a handful of months ago. And I want to be honest, like this was not an easy decision by any means. It's something that I truly never thought I would be in the position to be doing, especially with my podcast that I started, a year and a half ago, a little bit more than that. And it's something that was certainly on my manifestation list to grow this podcast to the size where I could do something on my own. I certainly had a lot of limiting beliefs about doing something on my own. I've always had a partner, and that has been such a beautiful thing. I wouldn't change a single thing. Dale and my relationship has been incredible. It has evolved over the years through twists and turns in the business, through marriages, through babies, all the things, through moves across the country. And she and I have been such a team. Definitely yin and yang, definitely balance each other out. Definitely when one of us is down, the other's up. And truly, truly would never have changed a thing about the 10 years that we did Sweats in the City together. Okay, so taking all of that into account, I had been having a feeling when I started my podcast about wanting to share about chronic conditions and nervous system regulation because it just was so relevant to me as someone who used it to completely change her life. And I just felt this pull that like I have to share. It was this turn your pain into purpose. It's the only option. I literally thought this was going to kill me and it didn't. And I came out stronger and now I get to share it with all of these people and help them. Like absolute calling and purpose and yeah. That said, I you know didn't necessarily start the podcast thinking like one day I'll leave Sweats by any means. It was just that it grew so rapidly and I needed an outlet for the alternative healing side of me. You know, back 10 years ago and really up until about a year ago, fitness was my passion. Talking about boutique fitness was my passion. I was so lit up by that. And as I started to create content for my podcast, I started feeling that very familiar feeling of being lit up by the reels I'm putting together and the podcast episodes and the writing and all of that I used to feel about boutique fitness and reviewing studios. And the reality for me was that that feeling wasn't fully there anymore. And I always say that like one of the side effects of doing the work, really going inward, working on yourself. I went to Hoffman, I went to Joe Dispenza, I meditate every day, I'm journaling, I've, had all these revelations. And one of the side effects of that is you really start to feel like you can only do things that feel 100% authentic to you. That's across relationships, career, friendships. For better or worse, you have to walk away from some things as you start to really strengthen your authenticity and bond with yourself. And so I started feeling that a bit this summer, where I was feeling so lit up and inspired by creating for the wellness process. And I was feeling a little bit like I wasn't showing up 110% for sweats. And I'm a 110% kind of girl. Over the years, I have given it everything. And I started to feel confusion around content and my direction and my place. And Dale and I have a very solid friendship. We are super communicative and open with each other. And so I immediately communicated that to Dale. I was like, I am feeling a little sticky around content. Can we meet and talk about this? I want to, sort of talk about direction and what we're doing and where we're going and sort of like where boutique fitness fits into everything. And I was just honestly confused. So we meet and we talk about it and we brainstorm some ideas and we go back to the drawing board and I'm putting content together and I'm still feeling that like internal pull that I couldn't ignore. Didn't know necessarily what was going to happen or what the solve was for that. So Dale and I meet right before 4th of July weekend. And I'm still having this feeling and we're talking through it and this is the first time that we kind of go into the option of me not doing sweats anymore, or sweats no longer existing, or calling it quits, or doing our podcasts, or whatever. Like it was the first time that had been on the table, which felt really sad and surreal and emotional and intense. And she and I were like, let's take 4th of July weekend. We're going to be with our families and friends, and let's enjoy that time. We'll circle back that Tuesday after, and we'll talk about what it is that we really want to do. Like, let's really sit on this. Let's meditate on it. Let's, go inward. So we meet on that Monday or Tuesday. And that is when I tell her, you know what? I actually think that I have to give this podcast being my full time thing, I have to give it a go. And I was so grateful, not surprised at all, because this is who Dale is to her core of how understanding and kind and honestly excited to take it on herself that Dale was. And I was truthfully most relieved and excited and happy that she was like, I'm all in on sweats. I will do this solo. I will shift and change the direction to fit exactly what I want to be doing in LA exclusively. And there was both, right? There was polarity. There was sadness and ending and a bit of mourning on my side of this 10-year, my baby that we created together. And there was also excitement for what we were both going to be doing because she and I both know, because we've been through these low lows, COVID being a great example during our time together with sweats, where we were like, this is make or break. This is sort of a rock bottom. We kind of have no choice but to pull through here. And every single time those little bottom outs have happened, we have come through and either had our greatest year yet, had our most growth yet. Um, it always, and this applies to everything in life, the rock bottom is like a brewing storm for the next chapter. And it's like, it's preparing you for what's to come, right? It's actually testing you to see if you have up leveled to take on that next step. So it was both. And we make this decision. We had some stuff that we needed to get done before actually, making the transition public. So we continued working together during that time. And about, I think it was like a month and a half later, we made the announcement. Now, Dale and I were feeling very positive about this. And that day, I think, and I'll just speak for myself when I say that the emotions really hit. It was, first of all, sharing this with our community felt like, for me, like there was a level of heartbreak of leaving this community that I've spent so long building alongside Dale, it was also frankly really exciting because I am not someone who is a creative by any means. And when you create content, you have to have some level of creativity. And I found that as someone whose like creative battery is pretty low, I didn't have enough to be pouring into both. So I was really excited also to feel what it would feel like to have all of that creativity be able to pour into what feels in this moment super aligned and like my purpose. Um, so Dale and I had this very emotional day where we FaceTimed several times. We were both crying. Also because we put together like a little sweats over the years thing uh for the announcement. I think that's what we did. Anyway, regardless, we were both going back into old photos and just looking at like, all the years, all the eras that we've been through together, all of the, ups and downs and bad athleisure decisions and weird studios. I mean, we like we have reviewed some of the strangest places in this city. We've done exclusively trampoline workouts. We ended up in a pole dancing class by accident with a group of Sweats followers one time. Like, it was really nostalgic, fun, and also really pulled at my heartstrings to go back and reminisce on all the memories together. I am not someone that does well with these transitions, frankly. Like, there is self-doubt that comes in, there is mourning, there is this nostalgia that I attach to the past where it feels so intense. I don't know if any of you guys experience that. Um, I think if you're someone that can run a little depressed, that knob tends to be turned up a little. I think there's something about like people that fixate on the past versus the future. Past, you're more depressed, future, you're more anxious because you're like spiraling over what hasn't happened. Anyway, I identify with both, unfortunately, but um, all that to say, there was a lot of nostalgia, a lot of tears. But ultimately, and I say this wholeheartedly, Dale and I, our priority in all of this has been our friendship. And it's been making sure that we are honest with each other, with ourselves, open communication always. I think that in friendship, in business, in partnership, with a husband, like honesty and open communication is everything. Things can get lost in translation, and that is how fights happen. That's how there becomes animosity. And so she and I, in this process, our focus was on the friendship. Like, obviously, we have this community that we need to be honest with and honor and approach the right way. But she and I, and what we have going on, and what we will continue to have as this deeply rooted friendship, like that's the priority. And it has been all along. And I think that that has been one of the many reasons why our friendship and business partnership has worked for so long, because 10 years of business with one of your best friends is very rare. And she and I feel very lucky. And I'm really excited about everything that she's doing with Sweats. So she's taking a little bit more of like a fitness reporting mentality. And you guys should check it out if you haven't. She's reviewing in LA. She's trend reporting, which Dale has always been really amazing at. And that's the thing with social media, with work, with literally anything. What you're innately good at and what feels good to produce is always the answer. We have these gifts. And I was with Jenna Zoe this weekend, who is a human design expert, and she was talking to me about the way that we have gifts. And if you try to dodge your gift, like it's only going to become more obvious to you and more apparent. And I really believe that you become kind of redirected. And so that's essentially what happened here. And Dale and I are amazing. We had a trip. We've had 2 visits since the Sweats departure. I went to see her in LA. We had dinner with her and her husband, Clayton and I, and got to spend some quality time and do workouts. Oh, and I remembered what I wanted to say. She was also just in town for my wedding, which was amazing. Um, Something else that I'm really excited about in this new era, if you will, is me and Dale's friendship 2.0, which is no longer built around work, which feels really strange, frankly, because like we talk all day generally with, personal stuff embedded into it, but like the majority of the the topic is about content and work and brand deals and timing and calendar and schedules and all that. So I'm really excited to just be able to catch up. It's so interesting when work has been like such a big part of your world and your friendship to be like, oh, we get to actually just go have that's the thing is like when we were in LA, we would like go have a meal and our, default was like, we need to shoot content. This is every opportunity where we're together, which isn't all the time now that we're on different coasts, was like an opportunity to create. And so there was always this little bit of stress around like, really squeezing the opportunity and getting all of the shots and getting like B-roll and filming the studio reviews. And now we're like, oh, we get to just go have a matcha and just go have a matcha. So it's been really nice. It's been really fun. I'm very excited for Dale. I'm excited for the wellness process and to be able to really put my 110% into this. And, it's another one of those trust falls. And I talk about trust falls all the time, leaving the relationship, leaving the job, ending the friendship. I genuinely believe that the universe really rewards a trust fall. So, and I say that I'm not making any of these decisions on a whim. Many months of thinking and planning and, going back and forth and collecting data go into all of my trust falls. But I genuinely feel like there is no more magnetic, abundant version of yourself than the one that makes the call that is honoring yourself and your authenticity. So, next topic that came highly requested is my wedding because I got married just a couple of weeks ago and I've been dying to sit down and tell you guys all of the details because even though we did something on the smaller side, I still felt like, the dress and the venue and all of that I wanted to be able to share on my own terms. So, starting from the top, Clayton and I did a bit of a non-traditional wedding. Unpopular opinion, I love a non-traditional wedding. I have never been a walk down the aisle, speeches, first dances, formalities kind of girl, and I know that that is very rare. I've been to a lot of weddings. I've never been to one that was like ours, and that was very much intentional. So, Clayton and I talked about marriage very early on in our relationship. I've said it on here before, but I feel very lucky that he and we were like, I'm done. We met and we were like, I'm done. It was immediate. And so the kind of wedding that we wanted was organically a part of that conversation. And I shared very early on that I never wanted to walk down an aisle. I never wanted a production. In fact, I was even open to eloping. But I did want to feel like we had properly celebrated and honored the day. He was on the exact same page. So when we got engaged, which was March of 2025, which was 9 months after we really met, which was very quick, but felt so right. We were like, let's do the New York City courthouse. Clayton suggested it, and I was like, that is what I've always wanted. It's funny because that January I had actually created a whole Pinterest board of manifestation, and I share this on my Substack if you guys want to actually see it. It had literally this ring on the board. It had courthouse wedding vibes. It had like vintage suits, non-traditional. And that is exactly what we ended up doing. It's so funny. I have like side by sides of the photos, and that was not intentional at all, but I really think that we manifested that. So we decided that we were going to do the courthouse. And then it became, okay, do we want to just do that? Do we want to do like a proper wedding afterwards? Do we want to just do a dinner? And we were both like intimate, cozy dinner that is like very food forward and just a dinner. That feels like us. So we start looking at spots. We talk to a handful. And then, as with everything in this process, once we hit the right spot, it became very, very obvious what that was. So we ended up picking Lilia, which is a restaurant in Brooklyn that Clayton and I both love. The food is incredible. The vibe is clean, crisp, chic, minimal. It's literally the perfect spot. It's also in Brooklyn, which is fun. And we were able to squeeze and configure and seat the bar and like really like bend a little bit in order to fit 78 people, which was perfect. We wanted less than 100. We wanted just our absolute closest. It's small enough where, we each get what, like less than 40 on each side. It's small enough where hopefully people aren't offended if they're not invited because really it's just a dinner. It's funny because like we kept calling it our wedding, but then we would correct ourselves and be like, wedding celebration, just a dinner. Because there's also, by the way, it wasn't like the smoothest process. Stuff comes up. It's complicated to plan anything. And because we decided to do something smaller, we didn't have a wedding planner. So that kind of like became us, which was an interesting exercise. So we locked in the venue. We really didn't have to do a ton on that because food, venue, lighting, everything, all a complete vibe. We had to make some decisions around like flowers and, some menu tweaks. We added in the clams, we added in an extra pasta, but like that was really it. Simultaneously, I started looking for a dress, and one of my girlfriends actually was my best friend Emily was like, "We're going dress shopping." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like we're just having a dinner." Again, wanted to avoid any of that. I don't know what it is. By the way, this might be like an internal wound where I feel weird about being celebrated. I've talked about that around my birthday a little bit, but genuinely, there was nothing about me that wanted the long train, the gown, the dress changes. Like it just wasn't me. I love that for other people. Don't love it for myself. So she takes me dress shopping, and we went to one place. We went to Daniel Frankel, and really we did it just to like have the experience together as best friends, and it was like very sweet of her to set it up. And the first dress, I'll call it a dress in air quotes because it was actually like a set that I tried on. I was like, this is it. Tried on a couple other just to play around, but really that ended up being the pick. So it was a super simple process, as with all of this. And that's exactly what I wanted. Like, I didn't want stressful. I didn't want anything to feel over the top. I wanted it to feel like Clayton and I. So I find the dress, I do the tailoring. Wow, I learned a lot about alterations and the power of alterations. I really maxed them out. I think we did like 5 rounds because it's just, you start to get this perfectionistic lens on the dress, and all of a sudden, like one little thing is hanging. And anyway, so that was fun. All of it was fun. That was really the goal, was like, how can we enjoy this process? I don't want becoming a bride to become my entire personality. It's important, and I'm getting married and I'm excited and it's about me and Clayton, but I don't want it to become a full-time job. I don't want it to become stressful. As soon as it becomes stressful, we're losing the plot. And I think a lot of people either don't mind that, or they're just like, this is something that I have to do. I also think that Clayton and I were very lucky in that we didn't have a lot of noise around what we should and shouldn't be doing. In fact, my mom was like, "Go ahead, elope, like amazing, beautiful." So it wasn't a traditional situation in a sense where there was a lot of pressure from families. I know from having a lot of friends that have gotten married how complicated that can get, particularly when the parents are paying because they have a lot more of a voice and then they want their friends invited. We didn't have any of that. So we really lucked out in that sense. We didn't have noise. The only thing that we kind of got a little off track with for a second was we started to feel pressure around an after party. The restaurant was like, we can only stay open till like, I don't know if it was like 11. We're like, what do we do with people? People are going to want to continue the night. Again, like just kind of going back to like what is standard. So Clayton and I started like going to venues and being like, do we want to do an after party at the Nines? Or, we went to a couple of spots. We're like, we can invite like 200 people and we'll just blow it out. And then we were like, we had a moment where we looked at each other after we went to one of these venues and we were like, this isn't what we want at all. This doesn't feel right at all. In fact, I actually hate after parties. I never make it. And if I do go, it's because I like feel like I have to go. It's just not my vibe. So what we were able to do is extend the dinner to midnight. It ended up going a little bit later than that even, and make it so that like, again, just a dinner. It's a dinner, it's a mingle, it's a have a drink. We added in a sax player and a pianist at the beginning. So it was like they were playing like funky covers. And then we had the sax player come back in at the end and we sort of turned the music up. So it was just like exactly what we wanted. And it's very easy when you're planning a wedding to get off course on that and start doing what you think other people want. And the truth of the matter is, I've been to a lot of weddings. People have such negative things to say about everyone's wedding. It is like, you go to a dinner, great, no one really says anything. You go to a wedding, there is a microscope that everyone subconsciously breaks out, and they're viewing your wedding through that lens, and they're seeing every little speck of dirt. They're seeing every little cadence that was off. It's actually wild out there. And I figure if people are going to have that kind of lens because this is technically a wedding, might as well do it my way, right? Like the idea of doing it somebody else's way to please other people and then have people say negative things about this experience that you're essentially putting on for them, not for me. Another revelation that Clayton and I had about weddings is that, first of all, obviously there's the piece that is very performative, but a lot of times it is this performance that's put on by non-professional performers, aka the people that are getting married, right? You're dancing, you're giving speeches, all these things where like we would normally be entertained by a professional, but you're doing it as a non-professional. And it's just, when you zoom out, it's actually very silly. So we wanted to avoid all of that. We didn't do speeches. Clayton got up and spoke, which was so beautiful. And the fact that he is able to throw that speech together literally during the day, so wild. I feel like I'm a little out of order here. So we're getting into dinner, the details, but also like I feel like I didn't really touch on the courthouse. Okay, taking it back. I really wanted a vintage Chanel suit for the courthouse. I had my eye on like a couple of certain ones. They're very hard to get your hands on. There was one that was like in a Sotheby's auction that I really wanted, and I had screenshotted it and like done the Google reverse search, and I was looking for it all the time, was striking out. I was like kind of starting to settle on a few that like again weren't really my vibe. And the one that I was looking for popped up randomly on Poshmark. And I was able to message the seller. She actually has like an Instagram store as well. So we were able to do it off of Instagram. I got it for $2,000 less. That feels like a manifestation. And it was a bigger size. We were able to I took it to a tailor that Danielle Frankel actually recommended, who was wonderful. And I got it perfectly tweaked. I got a Jimmy Choo, very simple nude pump. I borrowed my friend Emily's little white Loro Piana bag. I borrowed a necklace from Material Good. And it was honestly the perfect look. I liked my courthouse look way more than I liked my wedding look. And that's not because of what I was actually wearing. It's just that like the courthouse vibe was very much me. The like wedding gown has never really fully been me. I ended up getting like a cream colored set. So it felt a little bit less wedding and a little bit more like me. But regardless, I feel like the courthouse is where I really shined. So yeah, so we did that. We went to the courthouse. Honestly, you have to go get your wedding license. I think it's like 60 days before you actually get married or something like that. And Clayton and I went this summer, and it was a shit show in there. It felt like the DMV meets TSA. It was so chaotic. You were getting yelled at. I can't go through the metal detector because of my pacemaker. It just felt like I was in an airport. And I started to be like, oh God, is this what we should do? Should we just like bring someone to our house that's ordained? Um, so I started, that was like one of the rare moments where I was like, oh God, is this the right call? We ended up doing it anyway. We were like, we've committed to this. We want the New York City courthouse experience. It's a little gritty. And we found this amazing photographer. His name's Ben Rosser. And he shoots mostly in film, a lot of black and white, very candid. We didn't want like the stuffy traditional wedding photos. We really wanted like the moment captures, if you will. And so basically the weekend was as follows. We stayed at Phuket's in Tribeca, treated ourselves to a little staycation around the wedding. That's where our family was staying as well. So it was nice to kind of like have everyone in one place. We did the courthouse on Friday morning, which courthouse is not open on the weekend. And we loved the idea of a Friday because it just felt a little different. And like if people are coming to New York to come to this dinner, they have the weekend to themselves. You know, it's funny because you go to all these weddings and there's like these crazy itineraries, stuff to do every day, the brunch after the wedding, all this stuff, and everyone again complaining. And then you do the thing without an itinerary, and I'm sure people are also complaining about that. So again, go back to what feels good to you. That was really my lesson in all of this because I didn't want to wake up on the day after we got married and have a brunch that I had to go to. I wanted to sleep in and like kind of do whatever I wanted. So that was very much our vibe. We did the courthouse in the morning. It was and by the way, it's hard to get a Friday morning spot. It's like competitive. So I had to like set alarms and it was a bit of a process. I ended up getting a 10:15 slot, which was great. Felt very lucky for that. And so me, my parents, Clayton's mother, and the photographer went to the courthouse, just us. And it was by some sort of manifestation miracle, the calmest it's ever been. We were like the only ones in there initially. I think we had one of the first appointments. And it was perfect. Everything was seamless, smooth. The actual like ceremony in the courthouse, which not necessarily a vibe. Like my mom posted one of the photos from that. And I'm like, I don't know if that was really the vibe. There was like a woman in like a COVID mask behind a glass thing. Like it wasn't exactly the vibe, but we wanted quick. It was like probably 5 minutes in and out. We had our moment. We exchanged our rings. We said, I do. We kissed. The photographer was in there. It was beautiful and quick. And then we were able to just go enjoy the day. And so from there, we went to Phuket's where we had a lunch with our extended families. My sister came, Clayton's sister, and my brother-in-law was there. And it was perfect. I had some friends staying at the hotel who I saw. I went in for, like I didn't redo my hair and makeup, but I just slicked my blowout back into a bun. It was a very chill day. Clayton went and got me an interlude matcha. Like I was kind of like living on interlude matcha that day, which is very on brand. And then we transitioned into the dinner. We went over to Lilia. Everything was exactly as we wanted, very candlelit, very intimate. Our friends arrived, and I truly, first of all, I'm so glad that we didn't do anything smaller or elope or kind of skip out on the celebration because it was such a special feeling. And people always say, on your wedding, it's the one time in your life, other than maybe your funeral, where all the people you love are in one room. And something that I was thinking while I was there is that hits entirely differently, that statement, when they're your people, when they're your absolute closest, nearest and dearest that have been with you through every phase of life, or maybe they're a newer friend that you're really connected with. Whatever it is, they are the people that you would call if shit hit the fan, if you had the most amazing news. And it was so special to be in a room where, as someone who is an introvert and doesn't like big groups of people and sometimes gets very socially overwhelmed at like a big birthday dinner, when you know all of those people so intimately, it's such an introvert's dream because, you get up during the dinner. Clayton and I were like moving around the room the whole night, but because it was on the smaller side, I really feel like I got to have like intimate, connected conversations with most of the people in the room. And I feel like that is so rare. So that was really special. It was so cool to get up during dinner and go sit at a table of all my best friends and then get up and move over and sit with like all my closest family. Like such a special feeling. And I know that probably sounds so simple, but it really kind of was everything. And yeah, Clayton got up and gave a speech. I stood there and cried next to him. It was the sweetest thing. He's so good with his words. It was incredible. Like he just threw that together. I'm like, I could never. I also didn't say anything, which again, I was doing what felt good for me. I felt a little pressure like I should be saying something. I'm like, I'm just going to stand up there, hold his hand and be there. And that was it. One single speech, no performances other than the amazing Saxon pianist. And then we brought in this woman. Her name is Natasha Pikowitz. I hope I'm saying that right. And Clayton had this vision where he really wanted this like big puff pastry cream cake with like a bunch of berries. It's an Italian thing. And so we found this woman, this pastry chef, and she was able to create the cake. It was stunning. I don't think I've posted any pictures of it yet, but it was just so special. The food was incredible. Honestly, we were like, come hungry. I'm sick of weddings where the food is really not good. This is a food forward event. We're going to be eating pretty much the entire time. And it was incredible. It was rigatoni, it was muffaldini, it was steak, it was fish, it was olive oil cake, it was clams, it was prosciutto. Honestly, incredible food. And I feel like, again, another rarity, like I actually got to sit and eat. Every table I went to, they would like make me a plate at because I was moving around so much, but it was perfect, you guys. And I'm so grateful. I have more photos to come, hopefully soon. We're waiting to get the rest of it back, and it's just been so fun to go through the film. And we so from there, oh, the next day was actually also a highlight and also very impromptu. So we woke up at Phuket's. Some of our friends were staying there, some of them lived by, and we all just like met there for like again a very impromptu brunch. And we were like, we kind of sat there, drank coffee, like enjoyed our morning, recapped the night. And then we were like, let's go get Chinese food. So we went downtown. I'm totally blanking on the name, to this amazing Chinese spot. And we just all sat there. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon, and we had the best time having Chinese food, chilling, recapping, regrouping, recharging the social batteries with the closest people. And that was it. And Clayton and I went home that night and we booked our honeymoon that night on the Saturday night and flew out at 8 in the morning that Sunday. And the reason we did that and last minute is very much not his and my personality was because of weather. And we didn't want to go to Europe. We didn't want to go to Asia. We wanted to stay like relatively close, like Caribbean, Mexico, something like that. And because it's October and because there were a lot of storms happening, very much hurricane season zone. And so we didn't want to book a place where we would end up going and getting rained out. And so we basically were monitoring the weather till the very last minute. We were between the Mandarina in Mexico and Amanyara in Turks and Caicos. And Amanyara ended up looking like it was having better weather. So we flew down to Turks. We did 5 days there, which was perfect. It was really more of like a mini moon. One of the things I really cared about was leaving right after the wedding and going somewhere just for a couple of days. Like, I didn't need a huge extravagant trip, but we wanted to go somewhere beautiful and somewhere that we knew would be aesthetic and great. And even if it were rainy, like somewhere we wouldn't mind being a little bit like stuck, if you will. And so we landed on that. We actually drove our car to the airport so that we could land at JFK that Thursday night and drive straight out to the Hamptons and enjoy the weekend there. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. We got to be by the water. We had magnificent weather. It was like that just cocooning and enjoying that like post-marital bliss energy and enjoying each other and the beach and the water and the warmth. Oh, it was perfect. And then we drove out to the Hamptons and had like arguably the best fall weather ever. We got pumpkins, we made fires, we went to get pizza, we went to our favorite restaurants. It's so great off season out there. And that was it. And now we're back and I'm in full swing work. It felt good to take some kind of time off. I wasn't like not working on the honeymoon because that's just my personality, but I wasn't recording podcasts or ads or anything like that. Um, so, there's also a little bit of a post-weddings blues that I've been in. It just so happened that my luteal phase started basically the day we got back. So I've been navigating a little bit of that low, just trying to like nourish myself and be so incredibly grateful as I am for everything that has transpired this year. It has been, like I said, so transformative. Things that in my most wild dreams I couldn't have dreamed up better. Between meeting Clayton and my chronic pain and having this podcast have such immense growth in such a short period of time. I am ultimately at the end of this episode just want to say so grateful. So grateful to you guys for listening every week, to watching my YouTubes, to engaging with my social. It means the world. I can't believe what we all have been able to create together in such a short amount of time. And I really go back to the trust fall and the momentum that the universe gives you. The second you make that decision that you're going to honor yourself, everything starts to fall into place. And if you're someone that's in a rock bottom right now, I just have to tell you that the beauty and the magic and the light that comes after that is so special that I am actually so excited for you. I had so many rock bottoms leading up to the year of 2025, which really changed my life. And I'm really excited for all that's to come. And there are exciting things to come. So 2026, stay tuned because there are things in the works that I can't talk about yet that I'm very, very excited about. Last note of change is that Clayton and I are moving. Probably after this episode comes out, it'll be like the next week. We're staying in the same neighborhood, but we're moving a little closer to the water and into a bigger apartment with more space and a little office for me and a media room. And it's going to be really great. So we're kind of in like the design and we're doing a small amount of construction. So we're sort of in the weeds of that right now. Again, really exciting transformation. And also the location of this apartment. Before I knew Clayton, before any of this, the literal cross streets, it is one block off of the cross streets of the block that I said I wanted to live on in my future. So get specific with your manifestation lists. If you are wanting to manifest, I just started Lacey Phillips' book, How to Manifest. It's sort of like all of her to be magnetic work in one place. It's really good and really comprehensive. And that is the work that changed my life. I actually got up on stage with the To Be Magnetic team this past weekend and spoke, which I can't believe that happened. I'm telling you guys, the momentum and the abundance and the energy that comes with really getting back to your authenticity and working on your limiting beliefs around love, money, career, all the things, like it pays off in every sense of the word. So just had to add that in because I really feel like a lot of what has come to fruition and been manifested in the last years because of that work. And I actually have I have 2 episodes with Jessica Gill if you want to kind of go back and like learn a little bit more about what that actually looks like. But regardless, I'm just so grateful and excited. And thank you guys so much for being here today and listening. And until next time.